Hey everybody, welcome again to another week here at North Coast Church. And I have this interesting job where I'm supposed to keep you engaged for just a couple minutes before we get to the message. And a lot of times we have some different things that we're trying to announce, but today I simply want to invite you into the story of Jesus as we're going through this book of John, and to really see the person and Godhead of who Jesus is. This is an amazing story. And as we prepare this week, we have another amazing portion as we're going to be talking about the very first miracle that Jesus ever taught. Let's go ahead and get ready for our service. We encourage you, go to our website, download the message notes, follow along with us. There you can also put in a prayer request. You can also text that prayer request to this phone number right here on your screen. And then you can also give online as well. We're going to join in with worship in just a second and hear from Pastor Chris Brown, but we would love to be able to hear a little bit more from you, from every individual, whether you're across the country, around the world, or right here in the San Diego area. How is this ministry helping you, or what are some areas that we can maybe help you in? We have a short survey that we would like to be able to give you. To be able to participate, all you need to do is simply text the keyword survey to this phone number right here on your screen, and we will send you the link to that. Please, we would love for you to participate in that. Let's go ahead and join in worship and then hear from Pastor Chris.
Righteousness and your holiness and your faithfulness, yeah. changed, that I'm not the same. I take on one more time, say it's all about you and your righteousness and your holiness and your faithfulness, Lord. It's all about you, that my life is changed, that I'm not the same. No, I take on your name. Here we go. It's all about you. Yeah, yeah. It's all about you. Oh, yeah. That's right, God. It's all about you. This whole Christian thing, Lord, it's your righteousness. It's your holiness, Lord. You're the one who held eternity in your hand. You're the one, Jesus, who bore my sin on your shoulders. And I stand here thinking, what did I do to make this happen? And so my response is to give you my everything and say, so what can I say? What can I do but offer this heart, oh God? I'll stand, say, I'll stand with arms high and heart abandoned in awe of the one who gave it all. I'll stand, my soul, Lord, to you surrendered. All I am is yours. I'll stand, and I'll stand with arms high, my heart abandoned in awe of the one who gave it all. I'll stand, my soul, Lord, to you surrendered. All I am is yours. All I am, all I am, all I am is yours. Like this, all I am is yours. Yeah.
He has already moved his personal things to the other side of the wall. That's how it was done back then. Instead of building your own home, you used your parents' house as an already existing wall. That way you only had to build 3 sides, especially in poor communities. And he's been at work for the last 4 months on his small little house. His stuff has already been brought over. And tonight he will sleep with anxious excitement. Tomorrow, all of his best friends, his buddies will meet. They will bring torches and musical instruments. They're going to wait until night. It makes the parade a little more festive, you know? And they will walk 2 towns over, and he will grab his bride. It won't come as a shock to her completely. I mean, it's an arranged marriage. Mom and dad have gone 2 towns over. It was arranged months ago. In fact, 3 months ago, both he and his bride stood in the synagogue, and they exchanged their vows. They exchanged their symbols of commitment. But now it's that mandatory time of betrothal, a minimum of 2 months. Sometimes it could go up to a year. He's waited 3 months. He doesn't want to wait any longer. Tomorrow's the day. The parade out of town, bringing her back, and the celebration will start. As people see the parade leave town, they'll know the wedding's about to start. As people see the parade come back with her, people will start gathering their things and show up. You see, there wasn't a save the date that was sent out. There was a save the season. It'll be sometime soon. No one quite knows the hour or when. But tomorrow night, he's got everything set in motion. She's been on pins and needles. Partial fear. There's no dating. There's no really getting to know each other, just relying on a parent's contract. But partial excitement of starting a whole new life with him. And on the other side of his wall, a lone candle still dances in the dark of the night, casting long shadows. His mom and dad sit at a stark wooden table and just stare at each other. The papers they have just gone through between them has given them all the information they know and all of the information they dread. The money they have saved is not going to be equal to the guests that may show up. Their hope is a lot of respectfully declines. That's their hope. Because if everyone shows up that could show up to celebrate over the next 2, 3, 4 days as word gets out, they're not going to have what it takes to pull this off. And for their son sleeping next door and his new bride, for a start that they've both been waiting for, a start of a new life and joy and happily ever after, is going to begin with utter shame and embarrassment. In a Middle Eastern culture, you could not provide hospitality for those that traveled. You could not take care of your guest. And you cannot live that down. And what the parents don't know is one on that invite list is about to crash this wedding and take it over. But it's not what he does. It's who he is and who he claims to be. And that's what we jump into today. Man, if you've been kicking off this John series for the first 3 weeks and you've been like, okay, I like it, but I missed the stories of David. Others of you are like, well, we spent way too long in the Old Testament stories. Today, it's a combination of both. We start the narratives. Today and next week, we look at Jesus taking over 2 celebrations. Today, a personal, private, family celebration. Next week, a public holiday celebration. He's going to claim today who he is and what he does. Next week, he's going to show his authority in amazing ways. And now we sit with our bucket of popcorns, our Diet Coke, and we watch this unfold, understanding that the last of the disciples to die of old age, the only one that wasn't killed for his faith, writes a final book, not what he did. I got to tell you who he was, because the more you and I understand who this Jesus was, the more we're going to understand he crashes our wedding, our party, our singleness, our life, and the more we're going to welcome him to do so. Man, if you're not excited, you're just dead. I don't care. I'm excited. We're jumping in. Chapter 1, in case you missed it, we're in John chapter 2. Turn there. But chapter 1, John just started at the very beginning. He's God. He can't be anything else. For 2 weeks, we used a Rubik's Cube. If he's not God, then nothing else makes sense. If he's created by God or a God like we are, then nothing else makes sense. He is God. In fact, so many terms were used in the first chapter. I put it there in your note sheet. I didn't want to do them fill in the blanks because we get writer's cramp on number 1. But I want you to watch it, and then I want you to add 2 more. Here it is. Just in one chapter, we have seen Jesus called the Word, God, Creator, Light, one and only God, Lamb of God, Son of God, Messiah, King of Israel, and Son of Man and Stairway to Heaven. I want you to write these 2 down. Son of Man and Stairway to Heaven. Guitar solo. Thank you. This is what we ended with. So go to the end of chapter 1. I know you're in chapter 2, so you don't have to turn. It's just look at chapter 1, verse 50. Remember how John ended. John ended by saying he is God and he can't be anything else. Jesus can't be a good teacher. He can't be an example. He can't be a consultant. He can't be your forever friend unless he is God. Because if he is not God, then everything he did was a liar. He was a scam artist. Everything was a sham. If he's not God, then he can't be a great teacher if he teaches foolishness. If he's not God, then he can't be a great example because the guy came to fool and trick everybody. What type of example is that? And then remember John wrote, John the Baptist, the other John in the story, your national hero, was all about saying this is God coming to earth, and he pointed toward him. And we ended last week with 5 disciples being called. We're not at 12 yet. We're only at 5 in this story. And this one word was used over and over again. It was found, 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 found. And the disciple, the writer, simply writes and goes in. We have found God. We have found God. We have found the Messiah. We have found the King of Kings. We have found the King of Israel. And Jesus ends chapter 1 with his own declaration. And we miss it because most of us aren't good Jewish scholars and good Jewish boys and girls. Now, if we have some Jewish scholars with us, then you caught the end of chapter 1. The rest of us didn't. So let's read it together before we take off. Chapter 1, verse 50. Jesus tells these new 5 disciples, and specifically Nathanael. Remember, Nathanael came and Jesus goes, I saw you under the tree. And he's like, you must be the Lord. You must be the Messiah. And Jesus said, you believe because I told you that I saw you under the fig tree? Well, you're going to see greater things than that. He then added, I tell you the truth, you shall see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. And this is where you and I get a little lost with the Bible, because it gets a little Bible-ese. Jesus starts speaking in third person. In fact, right next to Son of Man, circle, highlight it, and write 83 times. Right next to Son of Man in your Bible, somewhere in the margin, just write 83 times. It's only used by Jesus, and he will call himself in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, in this book of John, 13 times. It's a title he will use about himself more than any other title. He calls himself the Son of Man, which you and I go, that's kind of weird. Because if the story of Christmas is true, you're the son of Mary, but you weren't the son of man. It wasn't from Joseph. Mary was a virgin, and she gave birth. That's what kind of made you special. And if you're the son of man, then you're just like us, and that goes against everything John said about being God. Because see, we're not reading it as good Jews. I put in your note sheet Daniel chapter 7. Let me just read you a portion of Daniel 7. See, one of your Old Testament prophets had this vision from God. Let me tell you about what the future is going to be. Let me tell you how God is going to come and redeem earth. And in Daniel chapter 7, Daniel writes this. So in my vision at night, I looked, and there before me was one like the Son of Man, coming in the clouds of heaven. He approached God, the Ancient of Days, and was led into his presence. He was given all authority, glory, and sovereign power over all nations, all peoples of every language, and they worshiped him. His dominion, his power, his rule is an everlasting dominion that will never pass away, and his kingdom is one that can never be destroyed. Man, for every good Hebrew person, for every Jewish man and woman that was tired of where their culture was, tired of their politics, tired of being oppressed by the Babylonians, by the Assyrians, tired by the Persians, by the Greeks and the Romans. They've been waiting for a hero. They've been waiting for what Daniel said would happen. We're waiting for one like the Son of Man. He appears to be human, but he is God. He's divinity. He has all power over all nations, all tribes, all languages. His rule, his authority can never, will never, ever, ever pass away. And every human being will one day realize he is God. And Jesus loved what was written about him so much, he used that title more than anything else. So you say, when Jesus ends chapter 1 and claims he's the Son of Man, what Jesus is doing is claiming everything you've been waiting for. All of these scriptures have come down to me. You and I just look at this. Why is he talking about himself in third person with a title that doesn't make sense? Every good person of the law would go, no, you didn't. You don't mess with that title. That's the one we've been waiting on. And in chapter 1, he plays the Son of Man card. And you will see angels ascending and descending. See, right next to that stairway of heaven, I put it in your notes, but write Genesis chapter 28. Genesis 28:12. Genesis 28:12 talks about the stairway to heaven. See, back the very first book in the Bible, Abraham is promised out of him, even though he's really old and his wife is, you'll have a great nation. He has a son, Isaac. Isaac has a son, Jacob. Jacob will later be called Israel. He'll have 12 sons, the 12 tribes. And one day, Jacob is on his way to find a wife. And God says, Jacob, I want to give you a promise. And laying out in a barren field one night, God shows up and gives him a vision. And in Genesis 28, he has a vision of angels ascending and descending. God said there is a path by which God gets to earth and earth gets to God. And at the end of chapter 1, Jesus says, you've used a lot of cool titles about me. Here's the one I'm playing. I'm the Son of Man, 83 times. I'm what it has always been about, and looking back, it will always still be about me. I have power, rule, dominion, authority over everything, and it is unending and it is untouchable. And by the way, I'm the stairway to heaven. I'm the means by which God came to earth. You want to know God's address on earth? It's Jesus. And then he makes this most audacious claim with that statement, and every good Jew would know it. And that means I'm also the stairway to heaven. He will back it up in the 14th chapter of this book and say, no one gets to the heaven but through me. You see, we end chapter 1 with 5 disciples saying, we have found, we have found, we have found. We have found the Messiah. We have found the Son of God. We have found the King of Israel. And then Jesus himself says, you believe just because you've heard what I've said so far? Oh, I'm the Son of Man, and I'm the ladder, the stairway to heaven. And chapter 1 ends. Oh, I hope this is starting to change your idea of Jesus. Oh, I hope this is starting to formulate a new understanding of his authority, his power, and his might. But the first chapter has been basically the theology, or the Christology, who Christ was. And now we turn the page into the stories that some of you have been waiting for, the narration that says, let me tell you who he is and what he's about to do. Now we turn the page and there's a wedding scene. A son has spent the last year building onto the side of his parents' house. It's a Jewish insula. You add on to the walls already built. You can go there, and on many of our trips to Israel, you can walk in and you can see these Jewish insulas. You can see one main house, and beside it, archaeology has discovered one built onto that and built onto that. And it's almost like apartments, like duplexes. And you can tell this is an extended family of generations. You don't have the money to buy the brick or the wood or the stone to build your own house. Build onto one that's already there. And this insula has happened. Our young groom has gone and got his bride. The betrothal period is over. They come back, and the first day there's a celebration. Day 2, people now realize it's wedding time, and they've showed up. Day 3, people have showed up. And mom and dad's greatest fear is about to become a reality. We don't have what it takes to pull this off. And the wedding in Cana in chapter 2. Man, this is good. Here we go. On the third day, circle, highlight, underline. Oh, isn't this good? I tell you what, as many times I've read the story, I've never really caught it until this. On the third day, we're going to end this chapter with Jesus also saying something about, hey, you try to kill me? Watch what happens on the third day. It's a reflection for every Christian that understands. Our hope is in a resurrected Jesus. Our hope isn't in some teacher that died, some glorious example that died, some instructor, some consultant that died, a prophet that died. Our hope is all wrapped up in a third day. There is an empty tomb. On the third day, Jesus gives a glimpse of his glory. And on the third day, a wedding took place in Cana in Galilee. And Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples had been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, they've got no more wine. Dear woman, why do you involve me? Jesus replied, my time has not yet come. Much has been made over these sentences. In fact, dear isn't in any original text. It's been put in there to show it was softer. But really what he said is, woman, it's not my problem. And you're talking to Mary, and she's a statue above the fireplace in a lot of homes. You don't talk to the statue that way. And yet all of these are Semitic customs. All these are Aramaic phrases. To say just woman was to, like in some of the olden days, to say my lady. In the South, where I grew up, just say ma'am. Ma'am, that wasn't a sign of disrespect. To say woman, to say ma'am, that's a sign of respect. And then he uses this little idiom, this little phrase that says, hey, what's this got to do with me? Like, hey, this is not my problem. And that's what he's saying. My time has not yet come. He's going to say this phrase over and over through the book of John. The time for him to be glorified is the cross. But he also shows that in this parent-child relationship, it's been severed. I don't do what mom tells me to do at this point. My baptism conferred that the Spirit like a dove came down and rested on me. I'm about my Father's business. We're going to hear those phrases throughout this book. The things I do, I don't do, but I only do what the Father tells me to do. The words I speak are the words he gives me. And Mary comes and says, hey, this has got to be family friends, maybe even distant relatives or close relations. We're at their party. More people have shown up. They don't have much. And now the humiliation of telling people that have traveled the distance, hey, we don't have enough to keep you here. You need to go back. Telling people that show up the next day, I'm sorry, we only had enough for a 2-day celebration. The humiliation that goes with this. See, this isn't just us ending a party early. This is very much a Middle Eastern custom. I did a little rabbit trail on this. You know, you can actually sue somebody for not returning a favor of hospitality to you. It was a legal binding that when someone goes this distance, respect, you have to show them hospitality. And this family is about to say, we can't. And I love the way Mary comes to Jesus. They're in trouble. And he's like, ma'am, it's not yet my time to be glorified. He doesn't move on Mary's words. We're not told how or why, but we're seeing now in the next few verses, apparently his conversation with his dad, not Joseph. We don't hear from Joseph from the time Jesus is 12 on. Almost every scholar thinks Joseph must have died somewhere in Jesus' teenage years. It's probably why he stayed in the house for some 30-some years until his brothers and sisters were old enough to take care of Mary. Then he could go about his public ministry. This is about God. And somewhere in Jesus going, Father, has this got my name on it? The answer comes, son, it does. You just had a baptism. The Spirit like a dove just came on you. A voice from heaven just said, "This is my son, whom I love, in whom I am well." God always has a deep voice. He's James Earl Jones. It's time. And the rest of the story you probably know, but read it. His mother just said to the servants, do whatever he tells you. Circle, highlight, underline, star, asterisk. He tells his mom, Mary, it's not yet my time. She tells the servants, do whatever he says. I don't know if he's going to say anything, but if he does, you just do whatever he says. Do you catch an air of, anticipation from Mary? Can you just stop and think about what's happened? It's been some 30 years since the angel showed up to her and Joseph and said, what's going to happen in you is from the Lord. You're going to have a son. You're going to name him Emmanuel, that God is with us. It's been 30 years since a manger scene where shepherds showed up, where angels appeared. It's been 30 years since wise men came to the house. It's been 30 years of nothing extraordinary happening. It's been 30 years of carrying the community weight and scorn that you've got a bastard child. It's been 30 years of you're the one that got pregnant by someone other than your husband before you got married. Oh, we'll cover it in the Gospels. Jesus will show up and the community will call him a mamzer baby, our word for bastard. We don't even know who your dad is, and you're going to tell us how to live life. It has been 30 years, and Mary's been harboring her heart. We couldn't have got that wrong. And when she heard about the baptism, when she heard about the Spirit coming on her son like a dove, when she heard the voice of God say, she's about to be able to let people know, I told you so. She's about to get her validation. She's about to say, my son is different. He's not mine. I carried the child of God. And what a better time than this. Chapter 1 just happened. There's been a claim of who you are. John the Baptist, you've now got disciples claiming who you are. Just do whatever he tells you to do. And nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. And Jesus said to the servants, fill the jars with water. So they filled them to the brim. And he told them, now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet. And they did so. And when the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine, he did not realize where it had come from, though of course the servants who had drawn the water out, they knew. He called the groom over aside and he said, hey, everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you've saved the best until now. Circle, highlight, underline. You see, this is the first of his miraculous signs that Jesus performed in Cana in Galilee. He thus revealed his glory, and his disciples put their faith in him. Man, as much as I would love to go on, Jesus is about to go to the temple, and what happens there is just outright crazy. It's lunatic. You may have heard the story, but you don't know why, and that's next week. Show up next week. For now, we've got enough to uncover right here. I love that out of the 37 to 39 miracles, depending how you count them, the book of John only carries 7. Remember, John is not interested in telling us more of what Jesus did. He's trying to tell us who he was. John does end chapter 21 by saying, by the way, what Matthew, Mark, Luke, and I wrote is just a smattering of Jesus. Don't ever think, well, Jesus did 30-some miracles. He goes, we just wrote you 30-some. I mean, it was a daily occurrence with this guy. They probably numbered in the hundreds. He said, but I'm not interested in the what, it's the who. He has picked 7 miracles that he will call signs. Now remember what a sign is. A sign points to something else. A sign, it's not itself greatness. A sign is pointing to something that's bigger than itself. He goes, these miracles, don't get caught up in what they were. They point to something. They point to a who. It's not what Jesus did. It's who he's claiming to be. I want you to write this down about the wedding crasher. And we jump into it and go, what in the world does this have to do with us? Number one, Jesus showed up when the party was dead and their ceremonies had left them empty. And that's when Jesus starts. The story of Jesus at this wedding. First of all, I love that he's invited. You're going to find that throughout the Gospels. Jesus wasn't some hermit in a cave. Jesus didn't have his head so far into heaven that the people on earth didn't like him. Jesus didn't walk around with some big scroll yelling at people. You don't invite guys like that to a party. We find all throughout the Gospels that when you've got something going on, Jesus is on the invite list. Listen to me. When you've got a party going on, a wedding going on, when the tax collector, sorry, drink. Ooh, can we edit that out? Matt? No, let's keep it going. Sorry at home. Drink one if you got it. Mine's water. Jesus is hanging out. He's invited to the wedding. He's invited to the party. He's got a social life. And when he's invited to work in this, it's at a time where it is dead. It is dead. See, wine is used so much in the Jewish culture, in the Jewish faith. Wine is a symbol, a picture of celebration and a picture of joy. Wine is glorified in the Bible. Drunkenness is always negated, always put down, always frowned upon, always said as a sin. Wine is a joy and a source of celebration, is in abundance. Blessed is the person that has his storehouses filled with wine. Drunkenness is always showed in the Bible. You're no longer led by the Spirit. You're no longer controlled by the Spirit. You're no longer walking in the Spirit when you're taken over by another spirit. But this is what the story is about. Your source of joy, your celebration is gone. Now you're about to enter into humiliation. It's brokenness. And what does Jesus use? 6 stone water pots. When your guests came, you had to wash their feet. When your guests came, they had to ceremonial wash their hands. See, you have all these religious traditions about making sure outwardly you are clean, making sure outwardly things are okay. But it's just dirty water. It doesn't clean anything. Your own personal party is dead. Your own ceremony has left you empty. We've got a scene where the joy is gone. The brokenness is about to set in. And Jesus goes, and this is where I work. This is a claim that I'm better than your religious ceremonies. I'm going to take what only outwardly makes you clean, and I'm going to show you what I can do with it. This is Jesus saying, I'm going to bring the joy to your party. I'm going to bring the abundance to your ceremony. And then he starts with what they had. He starts with what they had. It seems so simple. I almost didn't write it down. But he simply starts with what they had. So what do you have? You got stone water pots. I'll start with that. Well, what in the world are stone water pots going to do with anything? We've got this whole thing. I'll just start with what you have. Oh, when you and I encounter the depths of this God, when we truly understand who this Jesus is, you and I are going to understand that he simply wants to start with what we have. And I know we may be in the bit of our brokenness, of our party being dead, of our ceremony, our rituals, our religion leaving us wanton, leaving us just filled with dead water, not living water. And Jesus goes, I'm just going to start with what you have. And I look at my life and go, God, I don't have anything. That's the point. I don't have anything of worth. I don't have anything of value. And God goes, oh, Chris, I've created you with worth and value. You've just devalued yourself with your own party and your own ceremonies. But we have a God that says, I just want to start with what you have because I made you. I created you. I know you. And there's a purpose there. You may have lost that purpose. You may have lost that value. You may feel like you're dead, broken, and gone, and that's great. That's good. In fact, the more we feel like we're dead, the more we feel like we're empty, the more we probably turn to God. I was riding with my son some months ago, and he was involved in something that was getting pretty successful, and I was having a conversation with him. And I remember Bear looked at me, and he goes, I know, Dad, I know. You're worried about me failing. And I remember saying, Bear, I'm not worried about you failing. I'm worried about your success. Failure is good for a man. Failure keeps you humble. Failure gets you out of yourself. Failure makes you depend on God. Failure will allow you to lean more on him and less on you. Son, I'm worried about your success. I've met very, very few men that can handle success. Success will drive you to think you have it. You got what it takes. You're better than, more gifted. We even use spiritual terms for success. I'm more blessed, more favored, which couldn't be further from the truth. Son, I'm worried about success. Because if the party was a success, Jesus is just a guest. When you and I have our life and we enjoy it, we want it, we have it, and Jesus is just a guest. He's not asked to work. He's not allowed to work. In fact, we don't want him to change anything because doggone it, I like it the way it is. And I wonder how many weddings Jesus had gone to, never been invited to work, just merely a guest. It's the brokenness that he steps into. And he starts simply with what they had. And then he looked for a willingness to obey the absurd. Isn't that good? He just tells the servants, this miracle wasn't for the crowd. We're not told that the bride knows what happened, the groom knows what happened, the family knows what happened, the master of ceremonies doesn't even know where it had come from. The servants and the disciples who are there when the orders are given are the only ones that know what's going on here. This is a very private miracle. This is meant to deepen the faith of those that are walking with him. It's not meant for the crowd at this time. I've got 5 new disciples. You have a title for me? Oh, you call me the Word, you call me Life, you call me Son of God, the one and only Lamb of God, Messiah, King of Israel, Son of Man, Stairway to Heaven. I want to take you deeper than that. I want you and your titles to go deeper into my relationship. See, this was a miracle for them. But Jesus still looked for cooperation. Fill these with water and then go dip some out. I love that these servants filled them to the brim. Jesus didn't say fill it to the brim. I love that it's people not just doing what Jesus said, but doing it with an abandonment, a full commitment. See, I look at my life. When I'm so full of Chris, Jesus doesn't have room to work. When I'm so full of just my natural self instead of his spirit, Jesus doesn't have room to work. See, when we're broken, when we're emptied, he starts with what we have. And then he looks for our willingness, our cooperation. We don't do the miracle. We just submit to it. I don't do salvation. I just need to receive it. Jesus just needs us to step out into him. It's that faith that we talked about. 39 times in this book, John is going, he is God, and 39 times it is your act of believing. Not a one-time prayer, but a constantly stepping into cooperation and faith in what he says. And then he added his extra to their ordinary to make the extraordinary. And that's just brilliant. It's Jesus saying, I can go against the laws of nature since I created nature. I can go against the laws of creation because I am creator. I know what it takes to grow a grape. I know what it takes to harvest it. I know what it takes to smash it and juice it. I know what it takes to hang it in a cool, dry place. And I know how long it takes for the fermentation process to happen for you to have great wine. But since I am creator, I can make creation happen on the spot. Since I'm the God of nature, I can make the natural happen with simply a word. I can take just water, the ordinary, and add my extra and make it extraordinary. See, if the water pots were filled to the brim, Jesus didn't add anything. He just took the ordinary and made it extraordinary. Isn't that amazing? Jesus didn't say, no, look, leave room for me in here. Fill the water only this side because I got to add a lot to it. No, Jesus, they filled it to the brim, and he's like, that's sweet because I'm not adding to it. I'm being creator over creation. I'm taking the God that can change nature, which means this is a God that can change your nature and my nature. I don't care how broken. I don't care how depraved. I don't care how lost. I don't care how empty. In fact, that's where he seems to delight. And he'll take who you are and what you are in your ordinary and add his extra and make it extraordinary. We call this transformation. The big spiritual word, when we are transformed. Here's the beauty of the story. The human body, depending on who you are and your gender and your size, is about 60 to 70% water. We're the water pots. He goes, Chris, I'm taking you, just an average water pot, the ordinary. But if you want to step out and do what I say, I can make something extraordinary. Well, you're going to have to add a whole lot. You're going to have to give me all. He goes, no, I'm going to start with where you are. I'm going to start with who you are. And I'm going to start simply with what you have because that's how I made you. I made you for a purpose. You lost that purpose and you've become ordinary. And your ceremonies, your religiosity has left you with just dirty water. Outwardly trying to be clean and inwardly there's no joy. And I love that his very first miracle shows that he is God over nature and creation. And it's a miracle of transformation of the ordinary to the extraordinary. And then I love when they bring it to the master of the ceremony, he goes, you've saved the best for the last. Isn't that good? You've saved the best for the last. I love that the guy who's in charge of tasting the wine, who does this for a living, who knows good wine, tastes the wine that Jesus made and said, are you kidding me? You're different from most. Usually people serve their best stuff first. And when everyone starts getting a little buzzed and a little drunk as things go on, you can bring out the $9 chuck. You can bring out the stuff that's like, that was freshly squeezed. I don't know. Mix it with a little something, it'll pass. Their senses are dulled. He goes, not you. You've saved the best for the last. I think this first miracle is a picture of the entire Bible. God said, you had your laws, you had your prophets, but now you're going to see God. I've saved my best for this chapter, this last. But this is also you and I. I don't care if you're 30 years old, 50 years old, 70 years old. The moment we come and say, God, you now have my willingness and my faith. It's where God says, okay, I'm going to step in and save the best for the last. The chapters where God has worked in our life, moved in our life, that is what counts, not anything I've done before that. You realize that John 10:10, Jesus says, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that you may have life and have it in abundance. Christian, in your culture today, you should have more joy than anyone else, more peace than anyone else, more contentment than anyone else, more celebration than anyone else, more excitement than anyone else, more hope than anyone else. Why in this day and age does it seem like Christians are the most defeated, most down, most depressed? We're getting so filled with self. We're getting so filled with the ordinary, what we're consuming, watching, taking in. And we have forgot that faith isn't just a one-time prayer. It is a daily stepping into what Jesus said. It is a daily cooperation with the Son of God. It is a depth that we continue to get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into, just like any great relationship that we're pressing into. Oh, I loved my wife 29 years ago. She knocked my socks off, but that was just, I don't know, some Bambi thumper, Twitter-pated love. But compared to today, and 10 years ago, I thought I really loved Amy. But man, with this next decade have shown me, I can't wait for the next decade. The more you work, pour into something, the more richer and deeper and fuller it should be. And this is where Jesus starts. And this is where he crashes the wedding. And this is where he says, I'm not just come to give you life. I'm the source of life. I want you to have abundant life. You realize that if these stone jars were 20 gallons, then he made 600 bottles of good wine. If they held 30 gallons, then he made 900 bottles of great wine. That's 2,400 wine glasses. 2,400 glasses of wine he made. Now, I don't care how big your wedding is, you're not running through that. You know what he did? He set this couple up, not for humiliation, not for embarrassment, not for brokenness, not for being empty. He set up their first year. They're selling this stuff, and people are going, man, have you tried the wine? These kids are selling it down there. It was left over from their wedding. And as the boxes get down, you know what happens. The cases, prices get higher and higher. The last 20 are being auctioned off. This is Jesus wine. He set them up. He took a night that was going to be their greatest humiliation. They would seriously have conversations about moving out of the area after that night. And he took their ordinary, their brokenness, their empty. His extra made it extraordinary. And it wasn't just for a night. He set them up. Well, we've got to be ordinary water vessels who continue to lean in who this Jesus is, not just our Sunday school understanding, not just the 30 years of teaching North Coast understanding, but take these pages and continue to see what John's trying to tell us. You have abundant life because he's the source of life. He's the source of life. And if your life isn't abundant, it's on you. There's been an unwillingness on you, a lack of cooperation on you, because that is our God's desire for us. You see, we take this. How does God show up to us then? How do we apply it? Man, I'm glad you asked. It's the last couple fill in the blanks. Let's get to it. God seems to always start with our reply to do whatever he tells you. Isn't that good? This entire thing goes back to his mom, and who would know him best? She just turned to the servant and said, just do whatever he tells you to. It may seem absurd. You just fill it with water and go serve it. But it's simple. It's not hard for you to do. It may seem absurd, but it's just simple obedience. And Mary nailed it. Do whatever he tells you to. That shows our belief. That shows our faith. Our entire homework this week is on one passage. We're going to look at the rich young ruler in Matthew. Our entire homework is about one guy that comes to Jesus and he's lacking. Here's the problem. He's successful. It's easy to come to Jesus in failure. But when you're filled to the brim with you, it's really hard to get Jesus in your life. And he's successful. And our entire homework in our living room Wednesday night with our couples, we're going to be sitting going through it. It's a guy that can't do whatever Jesus tells him to. He can't give up on himself. He doesn't want, I want God to bless my life. I want God to give me heaven. But I don't want him to change my life. And Jesus goes, well, then I'm not here for you. What do you mean you're not here for me? You're supposed to bless my life because I said a prayer. And he goes, that's not how that works. Can you do what I tell you to? See, if Jesus is a good teacher, you don't have to do everything he tells you to. If he's just a consultant, you don't have to do everything he tells you to. If he's an example, try to be more like him, but you don't have to do everything he says. If he is God, the Son of Man coming on the clouds, by which every nation, every tongue, every tribe will confess, his dominion, his power, his rule is everlasting to everlasting and will never end, then you need to do what he says. Whatever he tells you to. I was just going to say it, but it was so good, I wrote it down. I don't know. I was proud of this one. After all, he is God. Why would he show up under any other title or assumption? He is God. Well, who does he think he is? That I have to do everything in the Bible? After all, he is God. Why would he show up under any other title? If he's God, he's not going to be teacher. He's not going to be example. He's not going to be your answer to the prayer. If he's God, he's not just going to be your savior. He didn't die on the cross just to save you. He died on the cross that you would come to a point of giving everything to him and he would become your Lord. Now with lordship, I got an amazing teacher, an amazing example, an amazing consultant. I got a savior, but it comes with lordship. It's why around here at North Coast, your kids don't come up to me and get money from me. I don't bring food to them at your house. I don't take them out to places. I'm not their banker. There are 3 kids at North Coast that I have become banker, consultant, rideshare, Uber Eats, secret shopper. There's 3. Why? Because I'm dad. But you don't get those things unless I'm dad. Why would God show up for any other title in our life if he's God? We got a lot of high schoolers at our church. If they all think they can come to me and get money, I'm sorry, kids. I'm not going to be used like that. Well, you gave it to them. I'm dad. And that's how I show up to them. And with that, they get everything else. You see, our response to this statement, just do whatever he tells you to. Our response to this statement separates demon faith from disciples' faith. This is it. I put there in your note sheet, Matthew 7. Jesus said, many people will come and say, Lord, Lord, don't we get heaven? And he goes, I never knew you. He goes, whoa, didn't we pray to you? Didn't I sing songs to you at church? He goes, I never knew you. And he told an amazing story about someone who builds their house on the sand and someone that builds their house on the rock. The storm comes and the guy in the sand gets washed away. He goes, anyone that hears these words of mine and puts them into practice, that is the person that's built on me. But you can sing to me, you can pray to me, you can call me teacher, Lord, good book. Sorry, I don't know you. Now, hear my words and put them into practice in your life. Oh, I'll take your ordinary and make it extraordinary. I'll transform you. Because that's what God and only God can do. A work in us and through us. I've said it before. The demons know Jesus. They know he's the Son of God. They know he died on the cross and they know he rose again. Please tell me, North Coast, your faith is different than demon faith. The demons outknow Jesus, outknowledge Jesus, have outexperienced Jesus. This may be bad grammar, but that's really good theology. The demons know Jesus better than any one of us at church. And they believe in him more than we believe in him. They were with him. They've seen him. Everything that wasn't written down, they've seen it. So what separates our faith from demon faith? Our response to do whatever he tells you to. See, now we have a disciple's faith. Last chapter, didn't the disciples believe in Jesus? And now it says they really believed? And Jesus goes, and that's belief. It's not a one-time prayer. That may start a journey. It's taking another step deeper and another step deeper. Oh, Christian, never, ever have months that go by where your belief in Jesus is the same. There's something else to follow, something else to step into, something else to take my ordinary and allow him to shape it and make it extraordinary, something else to walk in, someone else to walk with. This is the first sign. He started private, a family gathering, and only those that had already bought into him could see it. And at the end of it, they bought in a little more and a little more. And that's real belief. Belief isn't just a prayer that gets us into the wading pool and we just splash there. You're going to encounter Jesus says, take another step, take another step, take another step. Belief is not a one-time prayer, but steps of obedience that take us deeper and deeper into our faith and a relationship with Christ. Knowing more than just the titles of who he is, but living out the testimony in our life of what he does with ordinary water pots. You got a marriage that's broken. The wine has run out. It's far from the celebration you once had. Good news, you're chapter 2. When Jesus isn't just invited, but allowed to work, he will take the broken, the empty, the ordinary, and say, look what I can do with it. Good news, your singleness is broken. It's empty. You're devalued. You're searching. You're chapter 2. When you and I can stop being full of ourselves and say, God, there's stuff I'm just not obeying. I say I believe in you, but it's demon faith, and we can step into that. Oh, the beauty we find. I wasn't going to go there yet until 2 weeks from now, but we got to close this way. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind for our online audience, for East Cape Christian Fellowship into February. Oh, pray. I think Amy and I can join you guys. For all of you that are watching online, wherever you're watching, there is no doubt in my mind. There are some of you already in just 4 weeks into the series that go, my Jesus has been a title. I know him. I believe in him, just like the demons believe in him. And I've never gone all in. I've never said, God, I surrender to your word and your will. I just believed in Jesus and liked the fact that he'd get me a stairway from earth to heaven one day. And I may be Matthew 7, crying and singing out, and he doesn't know me. If that's you today, wherever you are, I'm just going to lead you in a prayer right now. A prayer saying, God, today I'm all in. Just say this, and you say it out loud if you're by yourself. If you're with a group, say it out loud. Make a commitment. If you want to just say it in your heart and in your mind, just say this. Say, God, thanks for allowing me to hear this today. You know I needed this. You know I've been living life my way. And today I want to say I'm sorry. I'm done. I'm empty. I'm joyless. I'm broken. And today I give you all my brokenness. I'm sorry for doing things my way. Forgive me for that. I realize you died on the cross to pay for anything I've done. Today I accept that. But today I also accept you're a risen God. You're alive. So come into my life. Take my ordinary. Take this average water pot and do the miracle that only God can. Make this extraordinary for you. From this day on, I'm yours. Teach me how to love you by teaching me how much you love me. Teach me in this series who you are so I can walk deeper with you. If you said that prayer today, could you please, just on your digital comments or on your app, can you just let us know? Just say, I said that prayer. We love to get those names after a prayer like this, and our staff just puts them out where we can just pray for you specifically. We would love to know. Father, for the rest of us, may we be people that stop walking in ourselves with a one-time prayer decision of faith, but may we daily just seek out and do whatever it is you're telling us to. And in there, may we find your abundance. May we find you are more than enough. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you so much for joining us once again, and we would love for you to participate in that survey. Simply text the keyword survey to this phone number right here on your screen. We look forward to having you back next week.